First of all, want to welcome you all. My name is Peter Sørensen. I have Hans, my wingman today from Columbus. We are doing a joint session here, which is a session that is on top of a session we did a couple of weeks ago, InterForm and Info, which I just want to recap a bit before we go into today's agenda, right? So it's all about InterForm and Info. We announced that there is a new partnership. So it's not new in the sense of collaboration, but it's a partnership for M3. And we promoted that. We have been partnering with Info since '99. So it's a long-lasting partnership we're really proud of, and we are now extending to also cover M3. So we talked about last time a lot of the things related to M3, that we have developed a package where we have spent quite some time with Columbus, making it stronger, better, and the objective for us from the beginning has always been that we don't want to supply a product, but we want to supply a solution that is fully integrated for all the processes we are involved with, and is very easily connected to M3. So the InterForm approach is that we are trying to help companies and not just M3 users. And a lot of what you will see today is taking exactly that into focus. So we also are very much into the belief that we should separate output from the ERP. Talked about that last time, right? What the benefits are and what we can do. So why we are here also with a partner, Columbus, today is because we have built up a community where we work very closely with Info, but also a community where we work with partners and customers. So there is actually a user group. We talked about that last time, that meets every second month, where we are all coming together, sharing experience, sharing challenges, market requirements, all of this coming together. So, but fundamentally, output as a thing is something, when it works, we don't think about, but when it doesn't work, it's critical. And we know about this. So InterForm as a partner only have one product, only do one thing. So if you want to be more into that, then it's a good place to be. And especially today, where I'm now just recapping from what we did last session, talked about the M3, the packaging, that everything is defined, so it will be there and supporting you, even though you are running IDM. It's designed to coexist, to give you the benefit of a standard approach. But also we are here because Info also talk about that InterForm comes in and is the partner when you need more than standard. So we will focus on everything that's more than standard today, and we have a lot of use cases that we go through. Last but not least, then the typical challenges, we talked about that last time as well. What are we facing? What are customers facing when they are looking at an output solution, either for their M3 on-prem or their industry cloud suite? So that is basically what we are going quickly. This was the recap, but that's what we are going to focus on. How can we deep dive? So the agenda of the day is that last time we scratched the surface of InterForm. We are going to be a bit deeper in the functionality, of course, related to M3 and so on. Then we talk about there is a European and even a global change when it comes to legal requirements. So that's where we will talk about the PDF UA, which is kind of an element in order to make you compliant for the European Accessibility Act. It's something that if you haven't done anything, then you're not compliant. That's just the nature. We have picked 3 customer cases. We want to go in detail so you can see why did other customers mid-project or before they start an ERP project go for an InterForm solution. And then at the end, we are going to focus on how does a project look like? So if we want to do this, what steps are we going through? What type of considerations and so on do we want to actually talk about? But for the next 15 minutes, it probably will be me speaking. But Hans, you're still here, and we want to kind of come back to also a lot of the things that you from Columbus have been doing as a partner to InterForm and also to Infor. So I'm happy to have you here with me today. So last time I mentioned quickly what InterForm was, right? And there were this slide where we talked, we can do some designing. It's where we start. We want to make some processes, connect processes. We want at the end to have some output generated. So that's still the same three things. So that's nothing new. But what I will do today is go a little bit deeper. We want to go in and acknowledge that it's not a word editor. That I kind of said last time, that is what IDM is providing as a design tool. We have here a proper design tool. In the old days, I would have said to you that was the best thing ever, and that would be our unique selling proposition. Today, we don't even talk about it. It's something we know that is important, but that is not where we want to spend most of our time. So initially in a project, we use it a lot. And then we also want to tell you to use it more than you have done before, but it's not where the value of the solution sits from our point of view. But it is still designed so you can do everything that you need to do. And it is a browser-based application. So whether you install on-premise or in the cloud, then it will look the same, it will operate the same. So if you're running a very old MoveX M3 version, InterForm is still a good choice. If you install it on a Windows, an IBM I or Windows in the cloud on-premise, it's still the same, it looks the same. So fundamentally, that will not change. Going from an on-premise to a cloud setup is literally less than an hour work. Then you can migrate the system. And knowing from other tools and what they do, hence we even had some projects where it's kind of a long journey. If you have to do this, then InterForm is from the beginning designed. So whatever direction you are heading, we are still the same tool. So let's try to look into some of the examples. This you saw before, right? We talked about advanced stuff. When is InterForm a choice? It's when you want to work with data, you want to present data differently, existing data. In this case here, we are regrouping data, making some calculations, some summing, and presenting it in a different way. This we saw last time. So let's go a bit deeper. What we want to do today is look at how and other things you could also do. And we have a lot of customers, and some of the references we come through later, customer cases, will actually utilize some of this. But I guess in this case, you can see the difference. So what you cannot see here is that the resource is from a website. It could also be in SharePoint, it could be in IDM, it could be a local folder. It could be a PIM system, PIM system, right? It could be wherever that you have a resource. So what InterForm is designed for is to connecting different types of resources, whether they are in the installation. It could even be a base64 encoded file that we get in an XML that we detach and then use in InterForm. So there are many ways, many types of image formats. A lot of you that are working electronically, that have websites and have a very visual profile, you would also know that these days there are graphics like WebP, which is a web format Google invented that most are using today for high performance visually. And of course, then what I mean by that is on screen. But that will normally also be the resources that we get as a result at the end. Hey, can you work with these? We need these to go into our documents as well. And of course, that's not a problem. So when we talk about doing this every day, it means that we have the first 8 different types of image formats that we support, right? So that's an example of that. And Hans, I think you're actually showing a case a bit later, right? Where we talk about images from different locations and so on. So then we can see it practically also from an M3 standpoint. So then there are other types of images as well, being vector graphics. In this case here, a customer of ours, they do kitchens, and it's bespoke. So what you order is measured for your home, and in this case they have a 3D drawing system that we integrate to. where we are taking the raw file, not a PDF, which some of you may, if you're working this way, have been used to, and then have to work with PDFs and so on. And we actually take the raw resource vector, in this case SVG, and are able to work with that in a design. So we have a full flexibility of utilizing the resource across the design. So this can be done in many ways. Even if you have a very active marketing, I would actually recommend you also to work this way, whether it's the previous example from Puma or here, that you can put your resources in a common place and always reference to that, and then let your marketing individually of you going in and do changes, and then InterForm automatically will pick up on this and then take whatever resource is now the right resource online or wherever you have. It could be a PRM system, it could be wherever actually, right? And then we will just instantly use the latest resource always. Then you don't have to have marketing coming and disturbing you. And on the other hand, you can also just always have the right information at hand. Last but not least, when we just talk about designing, I want to talk about being dynamic and flexible, because a lot of customers have been used to having conditions are not new. You have been able to do conditioning. You can do conditioning in standard as well, but the level of conditions that you're able to go in, and for instance, scheduling content. So with InterForm, we can go in and schedule content. For instance, it's not Christmas these days, but it could have been, right? Then we could go in and say from this time on to end of year, for instance, we want to display certain information, and otherwise it should be removed. So that there is a lot of that, showing discount columns only when discount, stop a process if there's no PO number, these type of things we can all do with conditioning. We come later into emailing and so on, where when we work with an XML, we can put everything into a variable, and we can use that variable in our workflow, in our designs, in our email. That means in the data we present in our output. But it is all based on conditions, because we know that you are not kind of one for everyone, one document for all customers. You want to have them dynamically changing. So the last, when we talk about designing, could also be, hey, we recognize that we have more than just M3 output. And InterForm is, as I mentioned, designed for you as a company. So no matter what we do, we will always think broader than M3. So we are here for M3, so it makes sense that we have an IDM template converter, right? That's part of the packaging, that we can take your existing IDM template and convert that into an InterForm template. But we can also do that if you're running alternative solutions, for instance, SAP, Microsoft, and so on, and you want to, of course, go into M3, then you are able to take those templates as well, convert into InterForm template, and continue in InterForm. That same goes from a standard PDF file. We could take a standard PDF, whatever you have. We also do that typically in a proof of concept, that if you're not with Industry Cloud Suite yet, you don't have an IDM template, you could just have a PDF. We will take that PDF, turn it into a document and a template in InterForm that you can continue working with. So this is actually where we talk about converters and want to make it as quick as possible. And I do think, Hans, that we have a reference later where you actually did something like this, right? Where it was 91 templates. It was kind of a lot. So we can even see some results of that a bit later. But it all comes down to, we don't want to spend more time than necessary on designing. It's in fact not where the value is added. It's where we have to start. And a lot of you have been used to having partners, or if you even are a partner today, have spent a lot of time with your customers here, that we need to spend this amount of time, but we actually don't want you to. We want that to be as efficient as possible. And that shows the case that we are here at InterForm, a software company, right? It is why we are a good fit with Infor, with Columbus and the other partners, that actually we have the partners with the customers. We even want the customers to do a lot of the things themselves, but then we also need to provide a tool. And that tool here has this as one of the features, that we don't want to sit and do designing. For instance, this one here was standard PDF converted one-to-one. So this is the original one, and this is what we did in InterForm one-to-one in a template, which you can now open up and drag and drop and reposition and add data and change and all of that. So just a proof of that. even though I spoke quite a bit about this right now, then it's the workflow where we want you to spend your time, right? And we talked about last time, and Hans will show several cases today. All three actually will have some workflow magic and will show you how the workflow comes to your benefit. It's all tied to our log. So when something doesn't happen as we want it, if we cannot reach a printer, all of that is flagged in the log. So you instantly, as a user, would be able to go in and see what is not right. As a partner, on behalf of a customer, you would be able to do exactly the same. But it will also be so that you are able from the system to send, for instance, a message to Hans, if he's your partner, without you even having to be involved yourself as a customer. He would be able to go in and fix whatever is not right. And remember, as we talk about here being more than an ERP, it could easily be data from a CPQ, PIM system. It could be from a different ERP as well. That all has to come together. So therefore, it's again, when we talk about standard, where we are way beyond then, we look at you as a company, and then we have to supply you with the capabilities that you need to drive your business. So we talk about alerting and messages. If it's a critical process, you don't really want to figure out 1 hour late or tomorrow that what you were supposed to do yesterday was not right. So therefore, there are alerting options in the software that can push something at the second or millisecond it happens. You don't have access to a printer. You're not able to email, these type of things. Or if something value-wise is above something and requires an action, and all these things is way beyond making it look nice, that we could argue that is what happens in IDM, right? That you create some data, put into a PDF, and then you send it out. Where InterForm goes deeper and say, no, that's not okay. We need to be able to also make sure there is a PO number on here. If not, stop. If we are printing a pick list and labels in one workflow, but we were not able to print the pick list, we would stop printing labels because it makes no sense. These type of actions is what InterForm takes care of. And it's why that customers getting an output solution in separate to the ERP sees the value of having one tool to actually collect the data and make sure it still happens and still drives what you want to drive as a company. And that's what Alistair Stone and I talked about last time, Alistair from Infor, that innovation, that we need to give you all the options, and that's the open framework that the Infor is talking highly about, that we really support and acknowledge and need to give them credit for, because a lot of you have been requesting features for a long time, and this is something that is delivered with this solution. So it is really where we don't want to stop by just giving you the same, right? And a part of when we also go into projects is making sure we understand what you're doing, but also need to make sure you understand what you are now capable of. So that's really also what we think that this thing called innovation and meeting customers at your own playing field is all about. So at the end, we have the workflow, we have the design, we have the workflow. Now we need to go in and do some output. And here are some of the output options we provide. There are more, right? But I've just handpicked some of them. I don't want to cover everything. For instance, I'm not going to talk about Excel. You know what that is, turning stuff into Excel. Signing documents, don't want to spend my time here. Faxing, you know that too. E-invoicing, you've heard about it. But what I want to talk about is what all of you are doing. So going into some of the features of the product that is to us normal, but is to you, if you look at IDM and standard, is advanced. So when you do this every day, then of course the bar is set a bit different, right? So what I want to talk about here is some of the things, try to inspire you, and then show some examples. So if we talk about PDF, then everyone knows PDF. That's also what IDM does, and so on, right? So that's not a surprise. So a lot of the things when we work with PDFs is about creating a PDF for the right purpose. It could be emailing. Then we want to have an attachment that has a certain name, right? But it could also be we want to structure the PDF so it has index inside the PDF. So if it's a bigger document, that it structures everything inside. We could use it for preview, so we don't want to print. We actually want to see it on a screen first before we do something. That kind of normal, right? Everyone would know that. Then at InterForm, we also have some advanced that we call, that is, for instance, create a PDF where we have form fields. If we're onboarding suppliers or customers, there are some information we need. So what you could do there is create a PDF if you don't have a web form that allows you to do that. Then send it out, let the customer fill, or supplier or whoever it is, fill out the form, send it back to you. InterForm could extract the value that was keyed in and provide to you, that you can then provide to another system, as an example. But I have a couple of other examples that might be more visual and a little bit, I even think, fun at the same time. So let's go with some examples here, right? We are sending out a reminder, and I try to make it a bit obvious what I intend to do here, right? So go with me here. Unfortunately, we did a lot of work. We didn't receive a payment, and we now need to remind someone. Typically, customers would spend around 20 to 30 minutes per reminder. That means drafting the document, acknowledging who has opened invoices, finding a copy, because if we don't send a copy along, they will just kind of tell us we didn't receive the first one, Peter, so that's why we didn't pay. So that I think is a process a lot of you recognize. So what InterForm is about is that you can see over here, I have an attachment. It's basically an embedded file. So when we create this, we go in IDM, for instance, or SharePoint, wherever you have your resource, on the fly, capture a copy of the unpaid invoice. If there are multiple, we will go and fetch more, and then send it out. It means you can remind all your customers with one click. We get the information. We will go and draft the documents, copy of unpaid documents, and send out. And the user will get an email with one PDF that inside of that PDF contains another PDF, right? So they have everything that they need. Let me show you another example that is the same. It's an account statement. If you don't know, then I can tell you what typically happens in your administration when you send out account statements, that they start to get calls. They get calls because they cannot recognize a certain transaction. So for instance, in this case, if all the transactions we have decided, credit notes and invoices, needs to come along as part of this. Again, one file, just one file that is attached in an email. So if the user goes in and cannot recognize this transaction here, then they can just double click here and it automatically pops up. It's an integrated embedded file that when we created it, went into IDM, picked it, and through InterForm embedded it. So we email it automatically to everyone, with including copies. That's one option. The other last option could also be that we don't want to have embedding. We want it to be merged. We want multiple PDFs to be merged together. So we, for instance, have everything at hand. And as you can see here, it's the main page. And then we have all the successive files just attached or appended, as we would call it, to the file. So when we merge, we can take PDFs with PDFs. When we embed, we can take any format and embed into a PDF. So imagine terms and conditions, imagine product sheets in your quotations, in your, it could be also you have credit notes. When you credit, you have a copy of the invoice that you credit. There's all sorts of things you might come up internally that would make sense for you to consider, but it's all based on PDFs. So it's just to inspire you, really. So another thing here, I mentioned PDF UA, and we need now to be a little bit serious in the sense of someone else are now telling us, they have been telling us in Europe since 2019, that you need to comply to what is called the European Accessibility Act. Long story short, it means that your PDFs needs to look a certain way. Not visually, but the way that we present data, because now people with disabilities need to be able to have the data in the file read out loud by a machine. So we've talked about that for quite some time. It's something that really is not that obvious for customers that they have to do. But I can tell you that the penalty is up to 500,000 euros if you don't do this. So that's kind of the situation. And I said initially, if you haven't done anything, you're not compliant. And I can tell you why, because you now need on a PDF, it doesn't mean that you have to change the visual appearance. We now need to, the data and how you present that into a PDF needs to change. So basically you can have the same look and feel, but inside it needs to be positioned different. And it kind of means that we need, for instance, to tell if there is images, what is it for a type of image. If it's a logo, we could say this is the InterForm logo. If it's an item product, we need to tell this is an item product and what item it is, because it needs to make sense for someone to have it read up loud. It also means that the ordering of the data needs to be done in a certain way. So if we are reading from top left to the right and from top to bottom, then we need to have the way that we would read the data done in the right way. So if we have, for instance, a sender and a receiver section, we would normally from top to bottom read across, right, and then with the header and the header for receiver and the sender. Now we need to have a section read up, so it makes sense. All the receiver information is read up and all the sender information is read up as one section. And so you can see what direction this goes, right? So it basically means there are things to do. It was last month, 28th of June, that this came into force. It's been since 2019, something that has been talked about and it was announced at the time. So therefore, really urge you to go in for your own sake. Now it's fine for the next couple of months, because everything new you do based on old templates, you don't have to change. But everything new you do when you change stuff must be compliant from now on. And when you hit 2030, 5 years back, you need to prove that everything is compliant. And the problem here with PDFs, when they're done, and they will speak for themselves whether they are compliant. So I cannot encourage you enough to go in and look at this, right? So there are things you need to do. It's not to scare anyone, because it can easily be done. It's actually a matter of hours. It's not a matter of days or weeks, right? That you can go in, but we need to address this individually for every one of you, depending on how you have set it up before. And if you are using InterForm, it's much easier already as an existing InterForm customer. But if you are brand new and you haven't heard about this before, then when you start a project, make sure, or we will definitely tell you, we need to think about this, because doing it right from the beginning is obviously significantly easier. So that is a topic we promised. Hey, when you work with a partner like us that does this every day, then we make sure that you are aware of this. This is what we need to make sure is something you're aware of, whether that is in Europe, in Australia, in US. When we hear about these things, we need to make sure that we share that with all of you, right? So that's what you get when you work with someone like us that does this every day. Okay, stepping a bit further into other features like emailing. Emailing is not new, you know that. I think that a lot of you have been used to shopping online, and when you shop online today, you don't get attachments, right? If we go Amazon, and then some of us probably remember that or can acknowledge that we get everything in the email body. There's no attachments. And we look at how many ERPs are doing it today, then they do most of it through attachments. Also, just businesses in general do that because they've been used to doing that, right? But if you don't need a document, you could work with notifications instead, perhaps. So that's what we can do in InterForm. Then you have the template, you can then turn it into an email template instead. Mentioning variables, we can take variables in emails that is from the XML. I don't think that's possible in IDM, but correct me if I'm wrong, Hans, but I think that's one of the things, but I may not be up to date, that we have seen with some customers at least. I think you're muted, Hans.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the way we do it in IDM with the email body, it doesn't really have access to the whole XML structure of your printout. So
Okay.
So we work subject and we work with a few fields.
Okay, so it's kind of not to it's just to give you some idea that here it's of course advanced in the sense that we can give you the same document but as an email, if that's way how you want to work. When we email here, it uses InterForm's email server, right? So we allow you to do multiple SMTP, SMTS as well. So if you have multiple brands and so on, you are able to not send from the same, which to many of you would, if you've tried that with the standard approach, that sometimes you go into spam significantly easier because it looks like it's comes from one and it's spam. With InterForm, it's not a do not reply email that sends it. It's that one that you prefer. It also means that you can actually have the sender of an email, even though it's from the system, look like it's sent from a user. So if we're talking about sales, it could be Peter's footer when it's Peter, Hans when it's Hans, Alistair when it's Alistair, and so on. So that is some of the powerful things you get. Probably the most powerful thing is, and that's because it's always sales, right? They have high requirements, we know that, and they are special, at least they think. So what they want is, of course, the ability to go in and impact the content of an email. So what we can do in InterForm is create the file composed by IT. That means we have decided it, but we are then populating that on the screen of the user. The user can then complete it, add more stuff if they want to, and send it out. Again, understanding how you work and so on, that's what you do when you do this every day. Then you try to go in and provide such capabilities. And there are many more, but it's just, again, this is a deep dive, but still kind of inspiring you. Then the biggest thing where we are different to IDM is the printing. We are not through a PDF, and we talk about some cases here about performance. What PDF does is not optimizing performance when we talk about printing. To some printers, PDF is great, but if we are doing, for instance, label printing, it will not be great. So what InterForm does, and that's where we're different, very much different, we do native printing. We tell the printer how to print. We give it its own preferred print language, significantly more complicated, but also where it makes it significantly faster and more reliant. So all of this is something we go in. So when we talk with, for instance, the certain devices, we would instruct the device how to print. We will not load fonts, load images, stuff in the device. So if you change the device, it's complicated. No, we will take care of that all from inside InterForm. There's also features built in that allows partners you to access printers remote. So if you have printers, for instance, a label printer, and you want to test print to that, but it's not in the same office as you, you can print here in China, as an example, get a print back in screen, and be 100% sure that what you get back on screen will match exactly how that printer would have printed that job with its settings. So you don't have to have someone in front of the printer that will tell you, and you don't perhaps even know when it's a good time for you to test print either. A lot of that is developed for our partners, but also for customers, because we know how you work. Again, nothing to do with output, you may think, but it has a big impact to output and how you manage. We have customers with thousands of printers. It makes a huge difference. And on the other hand, you also need to make sure that it's correct when you print, and that's a link with the hardware. That's where it all becomes important. Big part of this today also is performance printing. When you step into cloud, different ballgame, I can tell you from the beginning. It's big difference in the way you want to approach it, in the way that the data is handled, cross network and so on. All of this is very important. So a big part of InterForm is making sure we can print from the cloud, but also hybrid, understanding all of this. And if you have everything in your ERP, it's what you get. It's where we have the flexibility, optimizing performance. Hans will showcase a bit later where performance was the main driver, absolutely the main driver for selecting InterForm. The last thing is we talked about when you have more requirements than the ERP has to offer. For instance, label printing. So I know you can do some label printing, but you cannot do real label printing, right, as standard. And that's where we need to go in and again understand what it is, the way we communicate, how quickly we can do that. We don't have to do all sorts of driver and settings and so on. Also RFID the electronic version of labeling, where you have a chip inside the label. If you haven't heard about it, I'm happy to go in and show you what that is. But we can go into that perhaps on a different stage. But this is what we do natively in the same software, right? So let's try to, I will skip that one, minding time. But all of this comes together. We talked about that last time. InterForm here. If you spend 30 minutes with us, then we are most of the time, perhaps even every time, able to guide you whether you would be capable of kind of doing your thing with standard, or you would go in and being a candidate for an InterForm setup. And I can guarantee you, we will tell you if you can live with standard. We have no ambition of not doing that. The same with Hans and the partners of ours. They are here to make sure you get the right solution. But the right solution is probably not just a PDF, and that's the solution. No, we need to talk about it. You need to talk about it, because output will become even more important in the future than it is today, and therefore you want to separate that from the ERP. So we need to have a different discussion when you are upgrading from 13.4 and onwards, to look at it. What is your ambition? What are you going to do? All of that we will take care of. So, but that's a lot of talking. Now we want to shift over to Hans, because of customers, references, the same software everyone has. The M3 part is what we put on top. And we mentioned to you there are some video references that you are able to go in and look at. So please do if you want to. They are different from what we are talking about today. But now, Hans, I want to kind of introduce you and bring you on here on the stage here as well, because we have three cases. Some of them we are able to mention some names. Others we need to talk about more like what we did instead of mentioning who they are. But for this customer here, it's a big customer. They are in food and beverage, billion-dollar company. So they got actually involved with the industry CloudSuites. They are mid-project when they approach us 1 year kind of into it, because they were facing some challenges. And Hans, what challenges was it that we in this case here had to assist with helping?
Yeah, they've actually been live for almost a year now, and I was called into some meetings last year around this time. Some of our output consultants were struggling quite a lot with some of the printouts, especially labels. I guided them how could we do this on IDM. I did mention InterForm a few times. I even in a meeting I fixed one of the problems I had having exact that thing set up in my own proof of concept environment. But we had a deadline and didn't really have time to look into new software. So they actually went live with M3 using IDM, and still I got called into meetings once in a while, helping out with my experience on both IDM and output in general. What should we do here? How could we solve this in IDM? Also, I spent quite a lot of time helping their internal IT. How do we actually find out how to log things? How do we debug what's going on in IDM? And I don't know if you ever tried, but we do. It can be done, but you need to know exactly where, and you have to look in multiple places. Then this spring, they approached me again and said, "We remember you mentioned InterForm. We have a case now, and that's like a critical one. We have the order confirmation." And basically what we have for this customer is they're working with a third party that needs a copy of the order confirmation by email, but we also have the customer, but they don't want prices for that third parties. They're not allowed to see the prices, but they want one document flow. They want to do the order confirmation printout as normal. They set up CRS 945 with all the partner references. This exact example that I worked with, they had 5 email addresses in CRS 945, 3 of them with prices, 2 of them should not see the prices. So They talked to developers. We were talking about Extend M3. We were talking about a lot of iron integrations. A rough estimate was about a week's work to have this working. And no one really knew if we were ever going to do this. So I was challenged with this, and I did a proof of concept. I set up a workflow, and you see the workflow up here. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm sending out a flow to create a template with the prices. That's the top one you see in the top string. The second one is to show without prices. And the reason I could do that is because when they set up CRS 945, they put in the modification field. They put in ACK1 or ACK2, depending on if they want that with or without prices. And I could do this simple XPath string join, look at the mails where the ACK is equal to, and use that as my to mail in the top flow and say this is the one for receiving with price. Then in the second flow, show without prices, I just take those that has the ACK1. Then you might notice that I have a third string up there, and that is in case no one put in an ACK, then we decide are we showing with or without prices. But you see, I put in the second blue box. You can see the name is show price, and it has a value of true or false. I bring that into the template, and then I would just do the layout based on that. So I spent half an hour doing this proof of concept, another half an hour finishing and testing things. So a total of 1 hour, and I actually have this one, and we're gonna install in next week, I think, and then we're gonna install this workflow for this exception for the printout.
So if we look at this customer, Hans, then is it fair to say that you were actually not in a position you could solve it before, and also that the amount of time that you were spending there is minimum?
Yeah, there are always ways to do things, but how complex a solution to end up doing? I mean, this workflow is all the work I had to do. I mean, outside of the template, and we need to do the thing about filtering out the prices is also easy to do in InterForm, but it could also be done in IDM, of course. But the distribution, the selection of these email addresses, if you had to do this in standard M3, you'd have to build an extend M3 that would filter out these email addresses before sending the normal flow. And then you would have to trigger a second flow that pulls the file again and filter it with the opposite filter and send it through IDM and or through Iron to IDM once again. So it's also a lot of consultant that you need to involve with this setup. It's also a lot of places where you need to debug and find out what happened. Here I have it all in a sub workflow that I can attach to a generic one, and it was an hour's work.
So despite that you are a consultant and Columbus is a consultancy company, then of course to the benefit of customers here, you went for the solution that you know can be done in a smarter way and a quicker way, which I think is all in favor of what InterForm is all about, right? Whether it's the customer themselves who wants to do this, or it's our partners, then it's really about creating the right solution. And I think that's also what was kind of the idea of that open framework that Info spoke about, right? That we need to make sure you get the most value and you are not in a situation where there are things you cannot do. Now it's more or less how to do it. And I think that's all in favor of what we want to do as InterForm. But minding time here, we have a couple of cases more. Hence, then we also have our customer, common customer here, PlusPack, who here is origin out of Denmark. They're in the food packaging industry. They are a little bit different. They are pre-project because they want to prepare to step into Industry Cloud Suite. And they are kind of understood the way that we think at InterForm that they should approach this, that hey, let's prepare. Because if you step into InterForm way before you start a project, for instance, if you step into Industry Cloud Suite, you can start your output when you have the software because it's an integrated part of Industry Cloud Suite. in this case here, we have already prepared and done a lot of the work before they get, so they are preparing. And I know that's a project and a model that you use a lot with your customers at Columbus, Hans. So this is also very much how you do. But in this case, we also knew that the customer, they wanted to do more than ERP related things, right? So it's a couple of things that we are doing at the same time. But perhaps again, you can talk us into what exactly it is that that PlusPack here and Bastian and his team has achieved.
Yeah, they were actually looking at they've been looking at InterForm for quite a while to do the M3 printouts, but it wasn't really a good business case to say, oh, we're gonna switch technology and you're gonna get an order confirmation and an invoice that looks exactly the same. That's kind of hard to explain. Why do we need time and money to do that? So we did a brainstorming and we looked at a lot of the projects they had in scope, and one of them was a new customer portal. And you see a screenshot here from the customer portal. They're doing all these food packaging, aluminum, plastic, kind of thing. And part of their digital product is to provide data sheets and declarations of compliance, telling about what is the environmental cost of this product, what is the specs, that kind of things. It's all put into to some technical data sheets or compliance declarations. So we created 2 documents. We started out with the technical data sheet. Data comes from both M3 and their PIM system. It all merges into a data warehouse, and I pull all this data all the time from the data warehouse. Every single night, we do 1,500 new items or technical data sheets for 1,500 items, and put it all in their customer portal. The image you see, that tray, aluminum tray, that comes from SharePoint. So we pull all images. Sometimes we have 2 or 3 images on these. It depends on what data that their marketing is putting on their SharePoint. So just put an environmental image, as we call it, on their SharePoint, and it would be on this technical data sheet tomorrow, without any of us actually having to put hands on anything. So that's one part of this. The second part, declaration of compliance, that actually came as a sub-project to the big project. We didn't know about this when we set out, but this is what Peter talked about with the PDF to InterForm conversion. They have 91 different templates for these compliance documents, having different sections describing how is this document compliant with different regulations. Each of these were handled manually, maintained manually, but also if you needed it for a product, they would actually go and put in the product name, the item number, etc., etc. We do this every night now for 1,500 documents. I don't know how long you would expect to take this to take, but I got it from InterForm. I got the 91 template. That took a few minutes. Then I had 91 templates, and then I had 2 junior consultants actually putting in the dynamic data into these. And I spent 4 hours building the workflows and things to handle this, upload to SharePoint, upload to IDM, do all these things. But we did a total of 11 hours to do 91 different templates that is now producing 1,500 documents every single night with this information matching each item and each declaration. So 11 hours. I mean,
very successful, Hans, in that sense, because we could also know that some templates takes more than 11 hours just for one, right, when they're really complicated. But I think also the technology you used here in InterForm to extract the images from SharePoint in this case is exactly what I mentioned with Puma and the other examples. Right now, it's just how we do. So great. Of course, they are now preparing PlusPack for getting into Industry Cloud Suite, and very easily now having InterForm up and running, they can connect to Industry Cloud Suite and continue using InterForm and don't have to change anything. So a big help. But the last one we want to talk about today, they came into us also mid-project actually, and was really challenged. They were facing performance issues. and a retailer with a lot of outlets, right, serving thousands of customers, a very big shop. Mid-project, figured out not acceptable. And Hans, you talked about saving 20 seconds later or earlier, right? Exactly, that's the amount of time we also, in this case here, we're able to reduce lead time for every customer they serve in their outlets. So perhaps, Hans, here again we could talk into a little bit of the situation that because we were introduced with Infor and you, and we all came together and very quickly, just some months even before go live, we were able to actually go in and fix the situation. Hans, I think you're muted again.
Okay, I should be back now. So the big problem was print time at the counter in the outlets. Around 30 seconds for printout from the did the invoice. You're too early on this one, not yet. So it was a no-go. We couldn't go live with that setup simply because the customer didn't want to wait in the shops. So it was really a go or no-go solving this issue. And we did a proof of concept last summer showing that we could actually take 20 seconds off that of the lead time of the printout. So significantly improving that. We did 3 documents in about a month, less than a month, with them testing. It was over Christmas and everything, and they went live with these three documents. But then they found out when they actually went live, they found out, oh, but we do have a lot of exceptions that no one thought about, especially on the printout selection of printers. So we created what I call a printer exception workflow, where we do some lookups into some properties files, and you see it says MWS 435 PF printers, and I created a hierarchy that looks into this file, and depending on users, depending on facilities, depending on order types, it chooses the right printer. And if it doesn't find anything in this properties file, it would then use whatever came from M3. So they can now put in and say, yeah, but this facility, we know we have a special thing for the painting department in the stores, that when we sell paint, it always needs to be printed on a certain printer, the picking list. It's not the one out in the shop, it's the one in the back of the warehouse. And they actually control that on these things. Another thing is they're using a third party to do the physical printouts and sent by old-fashioned mail to the customers. So they have this printout service, it's called B for value, and certain printouts. So if you are on, if you have an account at this company, you would normally just get it by mail using the B for value. But what happens if you actually go and do like a cash buy in one of the shops, but you still want the discounts and everything? Well, then you're selling on another order type, and that order type is always printed. So it would look here for the order types. It's all set up in one of these files as well. So all done in InterForm. We actually want to set up like the order types inside M3, but because we had, I mean, from we experienced this till we actually had to finish it, we had only a few days. And start creating extend M3 tables to handle these things, it would take us way too long. So we ended up doing this. So that's step 2 in the solution, is moving it into M3 again.
Yeah, so performance key. Also, they're now, as far as I know, adding more documents now, right? Because they have that coexistence, that some part they do in IDM where there's no issues, and then there are others where they step into InterForm. And that's again going back to, it's really important. This is kind of just when we know that standard is not enough. then we look at InterForm. When we know standard is enough, then we go the standard route for those type of documents, right? And I think that's a very important that we are all here. It's all aligned with Info. It's the approach we want to take. It needs to add value. Don't spend time on something where we cannot do it better, or it makes no difference whether we are a few seconds quicker or faster if it's no value to you, right? So you should see this as the option that can guide you. So here at the end, because we are probably running a bit on time here, what we want to talk about here is how does a project look like, right? So we have an assessment, we do some scoping and some implementation. That is a typical approach. But we need to talk to you. What's your situation? Going back to the 30 minutes, right? Talk. I've talked about already a few times. I mentioned that, hey, we can, those two situations here, that's not PlusPack, we could have identified exactly their struggles up front, because there's nothing surprising. That is obvious to us that was the solution. It could have been catered for up front. We could have saved a lot of time and stress and money if we have had that talk up front. So that is also how we want to look at this also. But we do an assessment, then we go on to a scoping here. That is next step. But first is always, how do we approach? Where do we start? And we will go very, very direct to the case, in the sense we want to talk to you about what are your situation, what are your processes that you are doing today. We will ask you, we will guide you in that. So do we do label printing? Do we do this? Do we email? Do we have an external, in this case, a print house that assists us with sending stuff? All this we want to ask you about. This is what we do. And then we need to understand why we're doing this today. Do we want to do the same again? Are we doing things just because that was what the tool allowed us to back then? On the other hand, if we didn't change, why shouldn't we then do something perhaps more efficient today? Especially the example of emailing. If we don't want to send a document, we could just email it. It would be better for a lot of reasons, perhaps. That could be a way of looking at it. Then we need to understand what's important to you. So we don't end up in a situation where it was not thought that your customer, in this case, needed a label on top and on the side. So they need 2 or 3 labels in a shipment. Or we have others where your suppliers dictate other things. All of that we need to know, and we will ask you about. And there are some of the things that's always forgotten. And I think, Hans, that's also what you just said, right? Some things were not mentioned. It simply wasn't talked about, which meant that the start, that was the foundation that was set, is not actually something you can build on top of, because it's not defined in the proper way. And all of that, yeah.
Yeah, the big problem becomes then, this is at the end, we are like what we had with that German customer I showed you at the end. It was at go live they found out they had to do these things, and it was a kind of a showstopper if we couldn't handle things the way we wanted. So I mean, we needed something that was fast and agile.
That's exactly the situation. But going forward, here is that what we're looking at is not just the ERP. We were looking at you as a company, right? And that's reflected in the questions that we could go into. And at the same time, we need to talk about the product, the solution, what is possible of, because it 9 out of 10 times inspire you. Hey, then we also have this kind of project, and we also have this issue over here. Could you also then at the same time help us? It may not be where we start, but you would know. So that will take us to then, based on that feedback, to a scoping where we talk about, okay, this is the recommended solution. This is how we see how we coexist with IDM, how we are going to do. We want to involve certain people, the right stakeholders. I know it's a part of how Columbus do their projects. Make sure we have the right people for the right areas. So we make sure it's all ticked and cleared with everyone. So we don't end up exactly 2 minutes before go live, and then it's not really all way around something that has been discussed. And then depending on the scope, of course, the implementation is then planned accordingly. And we have a lot of customers who want to be a really big part of the implementation. They want to do a lot themselves. And then we have others where Hansen and the team takes completely over, or the other partners, or we directly, or whoever it is that are implementing has an approach. But it's very important that we actually would prefer you do a lot of it in-house if you have the time, because then it also means that when you want agile to go in and change stuff, accommodate your business and so on, you have that flexibility at hand. That's how the software is designed. And that's where we also, when we work with the partners, make sure they are trained and up to date and have all, let's say, the benefits of the solution that are built in, that are way beyond what one single customer would prefer, because it's designed for the partners that are working across multiple customers. There are different requirements, I can tell you that. Good. So because we are at the hour, then probably we don't have too much time for Q&As, but I wanted just to recap. So if you have questions, feel free to put them into the chat. Otherwise, we will reach out to you afterwards, and you also are able to reach out to us. But summarizing everything, we are here for you as a company. The M3 package we have designed is really great for M3, but we also are very much into the other things that you are doing. So we are here, the ones that can help you and guide you, and want to make sure that when you start a project, that we have given you the inputs that could very clearly tell us whether you are standard or advanced customer, meaning whether IDM would be enough, or you should look at InterForm as an alternative. We work very closely with the partners, the community. So everything here is also aligned with Infor, right? So in the direction they go, we make sure to follow the same. We share roadmap, we spend time together, we do the same with our partners. And then we also have the user group that I've mentioned before, where we get your input. You can sit with us every second month, get your say into how we go forward. So that's very important to us. We're really proud of this, actually, that we are working so close with partners, several partners together. Now we have Columbus here, but we also, as I mentioned, work close with others. Even Columbus work close with other of the partners. So it's not really here the ambition just to do everything on our own way. And then, of course, I want to say that the dedication we put into this, I hope you can see it, that it is the only thing we do. It is our job to make sure you can run your business and we can prepare you for the future. The same for our partners. We make sure that they are up to date so they can go and represent InterForm and guide you. So that is kind of the thing. So I don't know if we have any questions already. If not, then it's fine too. Then we kind of just want to say thank you for your time. I don't know, Hans, if you have anything to add. I know we are close at the hour. Otherwise, it's reach out to us. We are here. We are more than happy to take on a call. It can also be more than 30 minutes. It's just to make sure that you're aware of that it's not necessarily a lot of time needed in order to talk output. I don't know, Hans, do you have anything? I mean, working with you and the way that you work with InterForm, I don't know if you have anything to add here at the end.
Well, just to say it kind of, you know, I'm consultant, so I normally do hours for the customer and I sell hours, but working with InterForm, it's a completely different, because it's more about selling value and actually giving value to the customers. So that will save a lot of time, and when you save time using consultants, you also can afford to do more stuff and do even more value. So things like the compliance we saw at PlusPack, we would never have done that unless it could be done in a very little time. So we get more solutions. So yeah, I still have a lot of work to do, even though I do it more efficient today.
So that's because you have a lot of great partners and customers helping you also, right? And there is a lot of customers stepping from an on-premise M3 into the great industry cloud suite that Infor has done, right? And that is just get started. We can really encourage you there and perhaps talk your output project first. Then like PlusPack, you are able to separate and you don't have to do everything at once. That is definitely a recommendation. So we don't want to keep you any longer. Reach out to us. You have the contacts here. You're more than welcome to reach out to us. We are here for the same. So first and foremost, Hans, thank you very much for stepping up and assisting me today here. And to all of you that took the time, thank you very much. And well, we hope to hear from you. Thank you.